In this video, we're going to talk about better instructional design through mind mapping. Here's an overview of where we're headed. We're going to talk about what a mind map is. We're going to talk about using mind mapping for needs assessment, and we're going to talk about using mind mapping for mapping out the course framework. Today's goal. By the end of this workshop, you should know what a mind map is and be able to create and leverage them for conducting needs assessments and designing courses. Let's get started. This is your brain. It's full of connections. Your thoughts aren't random and they're not linear. Thoughts are interconnected. Mind maps illustrate this. This is Tony Bazan, and he was the creator of mind mapping. And he says a mind map is a powerful graphic technique which provides a universal key to unlock the potential of the brain. It harnesses the full range of cortical skills: word, image, number, logic, rhythm, color, and spatial awareness in a single, uniquely powerful manner. In so doing, it gives you the freedom to roam the infinite expanses of your brain. A mind map can be applied to every aspect of life where improved learning and clearer thinking will enhance human performance. These are mind maps. You can see they look very different. Some of them are software generated, some of them are drawn with markers. There's quite a variety. The key is that they all start in the center and radiate out. Here are some mind map guidelines. I'm going to start in the center at 1 o'clock, like I'm reading around a clock. Mind maps start in the center. You can put an image in them, you can use color in them, you can use different topics in them. But if you're going to use colors, you should use at least 3. Mind map styles are personal, and you'll find your style will develop over time as you use them. Some key words for mind maps include printing versus script. You can use upper and lowercase with what you're doing. Lines should be organized. You should start at the center with the thicker lines, if you're going to make lines thicker and thinner, should indicate the more important things, and the thinner outlines indicate less important things. Just like the way a branch on a tree is structured. Closer to the trunk, it's thicker and it gets thinner and thinner as you get out to twigs. Style of mind maps should be pretty organic and they should be free flowing. When you're putting lines in, the line should be the same length as the word or image that you're putting in there. Lines should always connect to the center and they should radiate out. And you should use a line for each word or image, or you can put lines alone out there and you can use lines to connect other things. In a mind map, you can use links and colors. You can use font changes for emphasis. You can add images and codes. You can even add dimension to them. There's really no official way to do things. For clarity, though, we want to think about it kind of like an outline. Things go in order, sort of, and they're more of a hierarchy, and that's the order of things. The main topic in the middle, and then the subtopic on the outside, and then the subtopics going from there. So let's take a look at creating a mind map. I want you to do this with me on a piece of paper as you go. So we're going to start with a piece of paper and you're going to put your name in the center, which is what I'm going to do right here. And then I want you to think about the different roles you play in life. And so for me, I'm a girlfriend. I am a mom. I am a grandmother, so I am a nana. Oops, a nana. I am a worker. I am a Christian. I am a learner. Oops. I don't have spell check on this marker. Sorry about that. And I am a teacher, which is what we're going to flesh out a little bit. So, as a teacher, I teach here at UCI, and I also teach at Bay Path University. Now, some of the things I do as a teacher, I have to ensure the content of the class is up to date. I have to check the class before it launches. And when the class is running, I have to facilitate it. And when I'm doing that, I participate in discussions. I grade assignments as well as discussions. I also will meet one-on-one with folks that need help. That's in there. Oops, I held that too long, and let me go back. Let me go back to where we were here. And I meet one-on-one with folks. I am using a Wacom tablet with this, and I have a new pen, and I'm still getting used to it being super sensitive. Anyway, that's how a mind map works. You continue to add things as you think of things, and you'll find that your brain will jump all over the place as you're working. So that should give you the idea of what a mind map is and how it works. Yours will probably look a little different than mine. Now, if I was going to do this on the computer, you would see it would look like this. It would be much easier to read. And as I'm adding the pieces in, you can see the branches go out. I prefer to work on the computer just because it's easy. I kind of think on the computer now. I've been using it so long. And when you get done, it kind of looks like this big, big, gigantic thing here. And what's pretty cool about this is that you can often see relationships you didn't often think of. And so here under learner, I have conferences, and conferences are connected. I go on vacation with my boyfriend. I bring him along and he gets to explore the city that we're at. They help me with the freelance work that I do, and they also help me with my job that I'm at. So you might see some other connections as you're working with your mind map um, on your mind map about you. Now, let's keep looking here and let's think a little bit more about needs assessment and how we can use a mind map for needs assessment. Needs assessment, the most important thing is to ask the right questions. And when you're doing a needs assessment, I always find asking these questions is the best way to go. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who needs the training? What do they need to know and be able to do? When do they able to be woof? When do they need to know and do it? Where do they need to know and do it? Why do they need to know and do it? And how do they need to know and do it? That helps get the basic information out, and it helps you know where you need to go with your training. Now, it's important that you get the right people in the meeting. Might have to invite some in virtually, but you want to get all the stakeholders together to brainstorm when you're thinking about what needs to be in the course. And we're not talking content, we're talking about the background, the framework of the course. Now, I will work with a map that sort of looks like this. I'll keep things folded in when I start with my subject matter experts so that they don't get all wigged out when I'm working with them. But I ask who the learners are, what's their job role, what's their education, what's their age, do we have any ELL accessibility issues I need to be aware about? Do we need manager training that supports the learners training so that they get the quick overview of here's what your staff are going to learn. Who, and this changes direction here, who are my stakeholders? Who needs to be involved in this? And who's going to be my key decision makers? I ask them what do they need to know and be able to do? I ask them what materials they have for me, what systems we're going to be using. And there's a lot of what questions that you can go with. When is when the project is going to roll out. But it also can encompass when the learners need to do what you're going to be teaching them. If you're teaching people a sales technique, are they going to use it on every customer? Are they just going to use it on certain customers? There may be criteria that go around that. Same thing with the where. Where will learners do this? If they need to know it on the spot when they're talking to a customer and don't have a computer to help them, well, then they need to work a little harder to train it. And also where they need to be trained. Is this going to be in a classroom? Is this going to be e-learning? You've got a lot of where related questions in there. When I ask why, I need to ask why they need to know and do this. Sometimes you'll find there's a hidden thing that they haven't been doing it so well, and we want to fix that. We want to retrain them. We want to talk about it. You also want to know why now. Sometimes they will have you do training 6 months before the software's rolling out, and you know that's not going to work really well. So you want to get those things out in the open. How? Well, you want to ask, how will we know that they're doing it well? And how will they need to be performing it? What kind of things are they doing? And then you're going to ask some step-by-step questions to get out of that. But you can get all this information generally in the course of an hour, and you've got a good framework of the things that you need to know to help them know and do whatever it is they need to do for the goal. After you do all this, I get them to come up with a goal. In the end, what do you want your learners to know and do? And if you can't get them to a single sentence goal, it's not well enough refined. They should be able to get to a 50,000-foot goal so that you can be very effective with what you're trying to do. You want to be precision, laser focused on that so you're not including this fluffy stuff. All right, you also want to know how well they need to know and do it. This is Gloria Gary's proficiency scale, and you want to know, does the learner need to be proficient with something? Do they need to just be familiar with it? Do they need to really understand it? Do they need to do something with conscious effort, like thinking through step by step by step by step? Do they need to have conscious action? They kind of know the stuff, but they have to really think about this goes next and this goes next. Should they be super proficient at the end of the training, or should they be unconsciously competent? You are not going to get them to unconscious competence in most cases. Just like when you are learning to do mind maps now, you're going to understand it hopefully and be able to use some conscious effort to get to what you need to do. And you won't get proficient until you've been doing this for a while. So help your subject matter experts and stakeholders understand that. Now, before you leave, you want to document the business goal, which is why you're doing this, and the course goal, which is what the learner should know and be able to do, and get them to agree with you before you leave. Having this in writing nailed down is going to make your job so much easier. Now, let's talk about what you're going to do with the goal. But before I do that, I want to show you um, how you use the needs assessment tools that you've got. I want to show you now how let's go back. I want to show you how you create a map in MindMeister. When you open up MindMaster, it's going to look like this, except you're not going to have all the maps that I have on here. You create a blank map, and in the middle, where it says My New Mind Map, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to change it. And, oh no, skip this now. Skip, skip, skip. Beep. Okay. Okay, so we've got our goal. When you've established the goal, which again is in the end, what does the learner need to know and be able to do? Not they understand this. How do you know that they know? We're going to talk more about that. From the goal comes the outcomes. These are the sub things that come out of the goal, the sub tasks that come out of it. Now, people often confuse outcomes and objectives. Outcomes focus on the learner, their end state result, and they answer the question, what's in it for me? At the end of this lesson, you should be able to use the style features of Word to create professional looking documents. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool outcome. Objectives focus on the teacher or the designer. They're usually used in lesson plans and they talk about how we get there. In this lesson, you will learn how to use the format painter to copy font styles. It's talking about what's happening in the lesson. Outcomes focus on doing and practical application. Objectives focus on learning and they're task based. That's your basic difference between them. So once I have my outcomes determined, I think about the objectives that I'm going to need to use to meet the outcomes, which eventually meet the goal. They all map together and work together. Let's do a practical example of this. Let's bake some blueberry muffins. My goal. In the end, the learner will be able to select, assemble, and measure ingredients to bake blueberry muffins. Here are my outcomes. The learner will be able to assemble correct ingredients and supplies, accurately measure ingredients and prepare for baking, and bake to proper doneness. Oh, those are pretty good outcomes, but it would be tough to build e-learning without a little bit more granularity or learning in general. My objectives. The learner will be able to locate the correct supplies in the pantry. They'll be able to locate correct supplies in the refrigerator. They'll be able to locate the measuring tools, bowls, and baking pans. Now, let's think about this as far as getting to my goal. If they can't locate the right stuff, they're not going to be able to bake blueberry muffins. So the objective is really important that they meet each objective. They're going to be able to measure the liquid items, measure the dry items, use the appropriate tool for mixing, mix it to appropriate consistency, and pour the amount into the pan. All right, well, yeah, that's doable. And then our bake to proper doneness, I need them to be able to set the oven temperature. I need them to identify time in the recipe. I need them to locate and set the oven timer. And I need to determine doneness. This is a subjective thing, so you have to teach them about that. What are you going to be looking for? You're going to tap it. You're going to stick a fork in it. You're going to stick a piece of spaghetti in. What are you going to do to make sure it's done? And you might have to adjust the recipe depending on their oven. So, do you see how these steps all fit together to get to the goal? That's what we try to do in instructional design. Now, let me show you how we can do that using MindMeister. Now, this is a mind map, and what we do is we put the goal in the center, and oh, nope, let me go back. Boop. I want to go back to the beginning. All right. When we get to MindMeister, it's going to look like this. Mind mapping software all pretty much looks the same, and it all pretty much works the same too. They've got different bells and whistles, but you always start with creating a map, and they've got templates you can work with. And I'm giving you a template you can start with, but we basically click to create the map. And you've got the center where we're going to put our goal. And you would type out your goal about in the end, learners will be able to yada yada yada. Now, when we want to extend from something, we click tab. Well, look at that. It created a new block. So here I'm going to put outcome. Oops, don't hit caps lock. Outcome. We're going to put outcome number 1, whatever that's going to be. Now, when you want to go parallel like this, you hit enter. So tab goes out, enter goes down. Outcome 2, outcome 3. And you can see I could have put my 3 blueberry muffin things there, um, but I'm just typing them so you see what the outcomes are. You can also click the plus sign if you want to use your mouse, but clicking tab I find is faster. So my objectives go out here. Objective 1. Oops, objective 1. And I hit enter because I'm going parallel, objective 2 and objective 3. And you might not have this many for each of them, and so on. So remember, it is tab to go out and enter to go down. Now, if I go enter on this, it's going to add it to outcome 1. I don't want to do that. I want to go to outcome 2. So I'm going to click outcome 2. I'm going to click tab, and I'm going to put objective here. And you know what? Actually, let me tell you one thing that's better. Instead of calling this objective 1, 2, 3, I want to make this objective 1.1. I want to make this objective 1.2. I want to make this 1.3. And I do that so that I just can keep track of stuff. They're all related to outcome number 1. So then this is going to be objective 2.1. And I'm going to click enter. Objective 2.2. On and on. You finish filling it. So you get the idea, hopefully. All right, let's go back to PowerPoint. So you can see how we put that in the mind map like that. Now, one of the things you want to think about when you're designing learning is how do you know that they know? Well, that's what we use assessment for. How do they know that they know? Well, they know that they know from feedback, self-measures, progress checks, reviews, and of course through assessment. You want to be sure that your learners are confident in their knowledge. And this is important. How do you know that how do you know that they know that they know? Well, when we were in the classroom, we could see the light bulb moment go off when we were working with students. We can't see that in e-learning. Did you know that light bulb moment is where the synapses connect and an idea sparks? It's really pretty cool how the brain works. Anyway, you want them to know that they know. And the reason you want them to know that they know is that when they're more confident of the answer, they're going to do better. They're just going to the learning is going to be more solid on things. So we want to help them know that they know as we're working with our e-learning, and we give them activities to practice. We'll give them assessments, quizzes, whatever we put in there, but we want them to know that they know as well as us knowing. In e-learning, we'll not really know except we get the final score at the end of SCORM, at the end of the LMS because of the way SCORM reports. If you're lucky enough to know XAPI and work with a system that does that, you might get reports on individual questions, but it's tough to get individual question reports out of most LMSs. But I digress. Let's keep going. So we want to assess each component. And so we write assessments for our objectives, we write assessments for our outcomes, and we write a final assessment for the goal. That's the big summative assessment at the end. And here's how it looks in the mind map. We've got our goal and our outcome and our objective, and then we put the assessment on, and I put an assessment for the outcome as well as the assessment for the individual objectives. Now, once we have everything assessed and we know how we're going to measure what we're teaching them, we add our content and our activities. Each objective should have content and activity and some kind of assessment. Now, in e-learning, sometimes the activity and the assessment are the same thing. Sometimes we have the practice thing that they use, and then we test it on it to make sure they really know that they know. Short e-learning, you probably don't want to have a double thing on each one, but at some point you want to know that they know, and they should know that they know. So you use the mind map to figure out what content goes with what objective and how it fits in with the big picture. Now, this is something important to know. Subject matter experts believe that people should know everything that they know. It takes 10,000 hours of practice to become an expert in anything. And since your subject matter expert has spent all that time, they'll often come and cart all this information to you that they think belongs in your little 10-minute e-learning course. The way to deal with that is to think about how you would organize a junk drawer. You take a look at the content and determine is it aligned with the goal or one of the objectives. If it is, great. If it isn't, we put it in the no pile. And if it's a maybe, we have to take a little closer look at it. So we take the content and we look at it individually and say, does this fit with something? Well, yeah, this looks like this fits with subjective 1C, so I think we'll include that. If it doesn't, it goes in the no pile. If you've created your goal and have the buy-in from your stakeholders in the beginning on that overall goal, this becomes a very easy process and you don't have to worry about the scope creep as much because you've already made decisions about what does and doesn't belong in the course. So when you have everything done, it looks like this. It's often a whole lot more cluttered looking like this. You can align it so it's left aligned. You can align it so it's center aligned. It doesn't really matter. The thing to know is that it often looks pretty messy. You'll see that as you look at my sample maps in the course. But the point of doing this is for you to think through stuff. It's not necessarily to have something to present to your stakeholders. You can, most mind mapping software has presentation feature and it goes and steps through the individual pieces and you can talk through it. You can teach them how to read it if you want to too, but I find that I put like fragmented notes in my mind maps and it's just better to explain it to them. So that's how you do mind mapping. So to review, we talked about what a mind map was. We talked about using mind maps for needs assessment. We talked about using mind maps for course design. And I want you to think about what were your keepers today? What did I talk about that you thought, oh, never thought about it that way? That's pretty cool. Now, today's goal by the end of this workshop, you should know what a mind map is and be able to create and leverage them for conducting needs assessments and designing courses. Can you? That's how we assess it. I look forward to seeing your assignment this week. I'm going to show you how I did this in case you're wondering about how I wrote on the screen and how I got my happy little circle here. So I'll show you that in a second. Okay, it looks like Camtasia is continuing, hopefully. When I am, what I did to record this was I used the Camtasia add-in in PowerPoint. I just clicked add-ons. When you install the newer versions of Camtasia, it'll install this as an option. And you've got your recording, choose the microphone, camera on or off. I chose to use the PowerPoint feature instead of using the Camtasia feature. And what I'm going to do here is show you how I got this little circle here. Insert Cameo. Pretty cool. And you can choose your Cameo and put it into all slides or just this slide. And you can choose all kinds of shapes and all sizes, which is kind of neat. And you can even make funky shapes if you want to on that. So there's a lot of great advantages to this. Um, Doing it this way. You can also record directly in PowerPoint if you want to now, which is also a nifty feature. When I click stop recording, it's going to dump me into Camtasia like this, and I can edit as we go. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and I look forward to seeing your assignments this week. Have fun designing them.